You're live.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright, and welcome to the shop. Tonight we're going to have a lot of fun and gore. We're going to be doing blood grooves. So you've got a cutting board and you want to make a groove all the way around it. The first idea most people think is you grab a router and you go, but we don't want to do that. We want to do things quietly and slowly and hard. Do it the most difficult way we can. So we're going to do it on the other side of this with chisels. So this will be the fun for tonight. Updates for things going on in the shop. For those of you who are new to Wood by Wright, we do a live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. And we pick some topic where we either talk through his tools or do a build or joinery or something of that nature. And we always have a good bit of time. And the chat is well, wild and crazy. So, or as wild and crazy as medieval nights can get.
If only you knew.
Yes, and if for all people who have questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. My wife down there, hi Sarah, she will be collating them and passing them on.
Sarah. I'm not just merely Sarah
Queen
anymore.
Sarah, the magnificent and gorgeous.
Empress. Hello.
Yeah, that's right. You've been upgraded to Empress.
Hello, it's Colton.
And for those of you who aren't watching it live, there are timestamps down below where you can go through and read through all the questions. So if there's something you want to jump to, you can do that in there. So do you want to do Sarah's update?
I don't know if there's much to update. There's a video out that has the update. Go watch it if you haven't. I don't know what else more to say.
So, yes, there's finally a second video on Sarah's workbench.
It only took 2 months. Actually, that's not too bad
considering what those last 2 months have been.
Oh, I told them the background, there might be 3D printer background noise, and they want to know it's printing, and I have no clue.
They are corner brackets for an enclosure for the 3D printer. So,
of course it is.
I doubt anyone can hear it. It's on stealth mode, and it's pretty quiet for the microphone.
Really loud. And laminated legs, yes.
So, yeah, today I was in the shop doing a whole bunch of recording. This will be actually Saturday's video, making the cutting board and doing all that there. I have a video coming up with restoring a egg beater drill, and then a pile of other things. We've got the update for the glue test. So a lot of people have been asking about that because I have a series of glues that I tested, and I actually have a long-term test. So I have a 6-month test and a 1-year test, and I have results from that. There was actually some pretty interesting surprises. So those will be coming up on probably next Thursday. We'll be putting that out. So I'm in the process of cramming a bunch of videos because Sarah and I are going to be gone early February. The first time either of us have gone like more than 45 minutes away from the house in a year.
Plus?
Well, except for like to Madison, that's about a little over an hour.
That doesn't count. Yeah. I went to Madison a lot in May and June, and that was not a vacation. That was at another hospital.
Yeah, we will be doing something fun for that. I think that Tuesday, which will be, what, the 8th? No, it would be the 9th. We might be doing something fun on that one because I'll be down in Florida and I'll be with my extended family. We're all getting a big condo, and it should be very interesting. So we'll see how that goes. So if you have any ideas for what we could do in Florida for a live, let me know.
I think we're going to have to get like some driftwood and except knives are not allowed on planes. I don't know. So
let me show you what we got going on here. A blood groove. It's one of those interesting things in woodworking, and it's a groove that commonly goes around the edge of a cutting board, so any juices that are on this drip into that groove rather than dripping off onto the counter. And so this is one, I've never actually done a hand-cut blood groove before on a cutting board, so this was my experiment. And I learned quite a bit on this one, so hopefully the other side will be a little better. I've done them a couple times with power tools, but the nice thing with carving tools is you can actually get these sharp corners here, so that'll be interesting to show. So what we've got is this side's all done. We're going to flip it over and do this side. And since this side has already been finished, it'll be kind of interesting. We should get a very strong contrast going through here. So I'm actually going to put this in between dogs on the bench so that we can pinch this whole thing up. Actually, I'm going to move this camera a little bit closer tonight. I normally have it backed out, and we're going to be doing almost everything right over here. So this should be a little bit easier for the average person to see. Let me just adjust this down a little bit. Ooh, not like that. Gave everyone whiplash. So, cutting board. I'm going to put it between some dogs so that it is not moving around. And I need to use the short one on there. And I find whenever I'm carving, I like things to be held as best in place. And normally I use hold fast. They're quick and easy, and I can put them out here in the middle of the bench. But for something like this where I'm going all the way around it, I really can't use hold fast and having to move it more often. The next thing we need to do is lay out exactly where we want that to be. And on the other side, I have it in a 1/2 inch and being a 1/2 inch wide. Actually, we take it out of this, so we have to lay that out. So I'm going to use a marking gauge, and we're actually going to run that all the way around. Are there any questions already?
Just the one you pulled out for Harold earlier.
Okay, I'll hit that one a little later.
Okay.
So I'm going to use this to run around at 1 inch in, and I'm doing the inside mark first, just because it makes it a little bit easier in the future, and you'll see that. Because with this one, I can go past the lines and it's not be a problem because any of the lines going past are going to end up inside the groove. On the other side, they end up outside the groove, which is not what we want. But I want to make these lines good and strong. Oh, there it ended. That 3D print file was 19 hours, so.
Well, they want to know where the bench.
I was hoping it would be done before the live, but I miscalculated by a few
They want to
minutes.
know where the puppy dog, bench puppy dog is.
Ooh, why is that bouncing out? Oh, I was up on that. Oops.
I don't know.
I messed up my groove here because I went up onto this. On the other side, I marked them out before putting the chamfer on to make it a little easier. This is a bench pup. It is smaller than the average bench dog. But I use the pup because on this hole here, which is off that camera, this hole here is actually into my bench leg, so it doesn't go down deep enough to get this into it, so it's easier to use the bench pup in that hole.
No, they want the real dog, the puff, the...
Bench dog?
No, the puppy dog.
Oh, bench dog. Oh, yeah. I cleaned off the bench. She's over here. Bench dog.
I just love how she's become our mascot.
Melody keeps asking me, when can I have my bench dog back? So this one is 1 inch in from the outside. And then our next one will be a 1/2 inch in from the outside, and that way it has a 1/2 inch groove. But on this next one, I'm going to move this up to 1/2 inch. On this one, I want to be very careful so that any of my lines, I don't want them to actually go all the way. I want them to stop just shy so that I don't have them running out. I found that out the hard way on this side. I should have realized it ahead of time, but my lines went past, and you can see them kind of coming out here. Let me see if it's focused. That might be a little better. You see the lines coming out past here. And we don't want to do that. So I can always plane those and make them disappear. But in this case, now that I have those lines on there, this will tell me a little bit easier where it will be about. So I can stay away from them. And so this takes a little bit. So what was that question while we're doing this?
Harold Golden had asked, side grain or end grain? Question mark. Would you use end grain cutting board for meat?
This is a long grain cutting board, which, as cutting boards go, long grain is usually a little bit more common. However, end grain cutting boards have become far more common recently because, well, they tend to be a little more artistic. You can do more with them. And there are people out there who will tell you never use an end grain cutting board because it's bad. It soaks up juices because you have the end grain opening up to it. But in all honesty, I really don't see much of that. I mean, yes, it's going to soak up juices, but is that really a problem? I mean, I guess if you're doing chicken, maybe, but I mean, you're going to want to wash it, in which case then you're fixing it. So I don't have as much of a problem with that. I mean, I wouldn't see any much of a difference between long grain and end grain because they're both wood. They both have a lot of pores.
What camera do you think you're on right now?
I'm on this one.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted them to see from the other angle.
So almost there. Got one more corner here. And I want to make sure that I make these touch. So I'm doing this, but I'm staying a little ways away from it. And then on this one, I'm going to come back and get close to that mark and come out from there. I want to try and make those points meet at this corner. Just like that. So now we have our marks running all the way around the board. I'm going to put it into the dogs and clamp it down. Now, the fun part. When you want to make a groove going all the way around, I could get a molding plane and run it all the way through the board. But with the groove running out the edge of the board, that kind of defeats the purpose of having the groove to catch the juices. So I could make a stopped groove, but making a stopped curved groove is very, very difficult. And I guess you could make it a rectangular groove. There's nothing wrong with that. But a curved groove is a little more aesthetically pleasing. So for that, I'm actually going to be using a gouge. And this is a carving gouge. This one is a 2 cherries. It's an 8 sweep. In other words, the curvature is a number 8 by 2 cherries numbers. And it is a 14 millimeter. So it's 14 millimeter across. So if you look for 2 cherries, 8, 14, it'll be on there. And I have a link to this one down below, but they're, like a lot of things, aren't in stock. So I have a couple other links to very similar ones. You want one that's pretty aggressive, and let me show you this up a little closer. It is a fairly aggressive sweep, but because we're doing a 1/2 inch wide, I want it to be a little bit deep. So you can see it is a number 8 sweep, 14 millimeter, 2 cherries, but just about any company will do. File, 2 cherries, they're both great. Let me set up this camera. Any questions so far?
Yes, but I want to try it at some point.
Once I get going, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, let's see. James Letner asked, could you put grooves off center of the middle so the juices don't puddle up where you're cutting?
Put grooves off center of middle. I don't know what you mean. We're doing a groove that goes all the way around the outside, so nothing in the middle.
But I'm wondering, like, a channel to then drain it away, so where
You can
you're...
put grooves wherever you want. It's your cutting board. So, let's come over here to this spot here, and we're going to do this grain running out that way. And just like always, there is a knot in my way right there. So this should be fun. And I'm going to set this in here, and I want to do just the middle. So I'm not going to get anywhere near the lines. I'm going to stick my gut into it. Let me back this up so you can see what I'm talking about here.
Okay, there is a... Did you mean to have the square suddenly show up on the screen?
Yeah, because I had to switch out to type so I can get a little brighter.
Okay,
so
just making sure.
You'll see some artifacts on the screen right there and right there, sorry. So I'm going to put this into my gut a little bit, put my hand back on here, and I'm going to actually use my body to move forward. And I'm just going to use that to get some of these light cuts up, and I'm staying away from the lines. I'm not getting anywhere near the lines, I'm just creating a groove in the middle. And one of the problems people have is they try and take a deep cut very, very quickly. And so I'm going to do that. Now here I'm getting into this knot, and here I'm going against the grain, so I want to make sure I'm doing a really shallow cut. Sometimes a stabbing cut really helps get you a little more control. Just like with a mallet, when you're hitting it, your impact is only going to move the chisel a little ways. If you're pushing on it and you're pushing into it and suddenly it lets loose and you've gouged out the wood. So using a little bit of a stabbing cut allows you to get through some of that. Otherwise, I can do this side of the knot, and then I can turn around and do this side of the knot, but it's just easier to do it all at once, as long as your chisel is sharp. And I will be sharpening this a couple times. I sharpened it before the show, but I will be doing more afterwards. So I'm just going to use this and get us up to this point here. Could you bring me a piece of paper if that one beside you is useful? I want to show something. Oh, you're using that one, sorry.
What paper do you want?
Right beside you on the desk.
This one?
Yeah, that works.
That would just not specify.
Once I get to the other side, I'll have you do some carving. So I want to explain what we're actually doing.
You're drawing. Gotcha.
With the cut itself. So let me come on over here to this one. Oop, wrong cut. There we go. Focus. There we go. I can go back out to that one. So what we're doing here is we have the surface of the board, and we want to make a groove from this point to this point. And we want the groove to be, something like that. So what we're doing right now is we're taking out this area here. And we're not worrying about anything underneath. We're not getting close to the line. We're just doing this. We're establishing a groove that'll make it easier for this whole thing to move on. Now the problem is, this isn't always just going across the grain. Sometimes we need to go, this isn't always going with the grain. Sometimes we need to go across the grain, like here. So if I go this way, I want to be very careful not to go any farther. I don't want these grains to rip out. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go at 45 degrees. And at this point, I might want to actually rotate. I'm pointing at the wrong corner. Sorry. Let's go up to this corner. That's the one I'm working on. I want to go across the grain. So I might actually use this to round. So I'll hold it in my hand and I'll rotate the back and let it actually ride on that bevel. So you can see here, just doing this allows me to cut across the grain, even though in some of these cases I'm going against the grain. And because of the grain direction, it's easy to cut on this side of the line, but this side of the line I'm cutting against it. So I want to be very, very careful not to let it run out there. So I'm taking my time on this. I'll just rock it along like that. And this one I'm going to come back and clean that up. Now if we're going across the grain, I'm going to come back here. And this side, I want to be very, very careful because there's a tendency to put a lot of pressure into this. And if you're putting a lot of pressure into this, it's going to be catching on all of that grain going across. And eventually it's going to catch and it's not going, you're pushing harder, and you've made a lot of mess. So in this case, I like to do the stabbing motion. Just like that, we've made that groove across. Might want to come back and widen this up in a few spots. And we're across to that. And then we're on to the opposite corner. In this case, in one side is always easier than the other because one side you're going with it and one side you're going against it. And then in this case, it's the opposite. I was going against it on the outside on the other corner. On this corner, I'm going with it on the outside. So I just want to be focusing on that. And again, I'm going to use that rocking technique to roll it back and forth. Now I'm watching the grain here. It's wanting to split out and run this way. And if I let it do that, it's going to go past the line. So I'm actually going to scoot it back and cut those fibers. And here, if the grain runs out, it's okay. It's going to run out into the groove. So we're just going to do that right to there. And we can continue this around the whole board. And run that side. But I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to show you the whole process, and then I'm going to have Sarah come over here and do that. So let's come back here to the beginning. Any questions so far?
Alan Smith said, does one normally do a groove on both sides? Makes sense being functional, but didn't know that.
Usually you do the groove all the way around the board so that juices running off at any spot get caught in the groove rather than running off the board onto the counter.
No. Both sides of the board.
No, it just makes it two-sided. So you can use both sides of the cutting board. That way if one side gets dirty, you flip it over and use the other side. And also I wanted to demonstrate it and I wanted a whole video on it, so I had to do it twice. So why not do both sides?
So in actuality,
what?
It's just because you need material.
Yeah, exactly. So on this one, we have this cut out. Now we're going to come back through, and we're going to cut out right up to this line, and we're going to cut out one like this. And it'll actually be more of pretty close to the line here. And then we're going to come over here and do this side and cut it like that. And so we're going to do it little bit by little bit. So we're going to start this side, and we're going to get all the way over to this line, all the way along it. And then we're going to come over and do the other side all the way along it. And this is where you want to be a little more careful, but now that you have a groove established, it actually becomes a little bit easier. So let's actually zoom in. And now I'm going to back up here, And I'm going to establish the cut. I'm still just a hair away from the line. Just want to give myself a little place to work. And I'm going to put that cut right into that line. And I'm going to follow that line along. You can see I'm using that rocking motion I used before. The rocking motion doesn't give you a very clean cut, but it gives you a very controllable cut because you don't need to use as much force. You're actually shearing the fibers rather than just pushing through them. But I'm just going to follow along the line on my side of the board, all the way down. And now I'm getting into that knot. So I'm actually going to turn around, and one side of the knot I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to get right up on, ooh, that was close. Right up onto that line. Now we can turn around and do the other side of the knot. A little tear out there. Oh well.
Why is it so dark all of a sudden?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to flip it back. There, that'll make it a little easier. But you'll see that box down there.
We get all sorts of artifact now, but that's okay.
What's that?
So there's all sorts of artifact now.
So I'm just taking my time here, being very, very conscious of where that line is. And if at anything I'm leaning away from the line, because I can always come back and clean it up. If I run past the line, well, I can't clean that up. Here, sorry.
I was just going to say, we can't see.
What questions we got while I'm doing this?
I think, did you just talk about a good way to plow a groove in the end grain?
Yeah, I went across the end.
Okay, that's what I thought you just talked about.
Yep.
The poor man asked, regarding the long grain, end grain question, wouldn't the finish kind of fill the grain so that it absorbs less juice?
Yeah, but it'll do that for either long grain or end grain. But end grain is always open, even if the finish is there. Finish doesn't completely clog it. It just clogs it somewhat. I mean, unless you're using a film finish. And so now I'm going to go back along it and do the other side. And I'm going to stay close to the other line. This one's a little bit easier because the line is easier to see on this side. And there's that knot. Gotta turn around, make sure you're always going with the grain whenever possible. There's gonna be a little tear out on that one. Such is life. Oh well. Happy little tear out. There is no such thing as perfection, so don't worry about it. What other questions we got?
Andrew Kierstead asked, what type of wood glue do you use on your cutting boards to keep them from separating when you wash them? I use Titebond Original.
I use epoxy. It is, yeah, Titebond Original is not a good wood glue for water that will dissolve very easily in water. So I would not suggest that. Titebond 3 says it's waterproof, but in tests, I would not use it for that. So let's continue on to this side. But yeah, I use epoxy. I know there are a lot of people who will, who hate the idea of epoxy because it is epoxy. You don't want that anywhere near food, but the amount in there is, you're never going to get that in your food. It's not even worth thinking about.
It's half plastic anyways.
Yeah. Now on this one, because half of this is going with the grain and half of it is going against the grain, I'm going to cut from one direction on one side and another direction from the other side, because I don't want to use that rocking motion that leaves a fairly rough cut. So I'm going to stay on the inside of the line on this direction and trying not to do that rocking motion, but trying not to push too hard and go right through. Stay right up close to that line. And then we're going to turn around. And normally I would rotate the whole board around, but because I have a video here, it's just easier to do it this way. No, it's not easier to do it this way. Just have to be more careful with it. I want to get close to that line. And then I can come back in here with the edge of it and detail that nice and sharp. Yes, I'm chiseling towards myself. As long as you're in control, that's the moment you're going to slip. And now we're going to do it across the grain. And again, I want to try and use that stabbing motion. So if I can, I'm going to get by with just pushing because that gives you a little bit more control side to side. But sometimes, if you get good at it, you'll find that this stabbing motion can be very controllable. Just takes a little bit more skill to hold the bevel. And it's the very same skill as hand tool carving. You don't want to be scooping with every push. You want to be linear pushing. So that requires your whole body to be moving with it until your arms start to get in place for it. And then eventually you'll be using just your upper body. And then you can do it with just your arms. Now it took me, I think it was 35 minutes to do the other side earlier today, but I wasn't actually talking to people and demonstrating. So if I can get one side all the way done, I'll be happy. But I'm going to turn around and let Sarah do some on the other side so you can see how it goes for her. And in this one, I was actually pretty far away from the line, so I'm going to do it in 2 passes. One pass getting me closer to the line, another one coming back and actually getting at that line.
I almost feel like you could just skip all the hard work, and I'm sure there's some cabinet door for kitchens that already have this groove put in, and you can just save yourself.
Yeah, this is a really fun step. I enjoy this immensely. The idea of being able to hand carve things is just incredible. Yeah, I really like this. Now the tip is starting to get dull on me. I'm pushing through this and I'm not getting quite as clean a cut. So before I go back and do the final cut on this, I'm going to sharpen the gouge. So to do that, I'm actually going to show you here. And I usually keep the strop on my bench or around. And I'm going to start up on one
You're
leg.
like right on top of the yellow triangle square thing.
Oh, you can see those, sorry.
Yeah.
You can go back to this now that I'm backed up. So on this, I'm going to start up on the wings and pull it back. And then I'm going to slowly roll it as I'm going. In each spot, I'm going to do one spot and roll it a little more. I'm going to do another spot. I'm going to do another spot. It'll be about 6 or 7 spots all the way along this. Woo! Someone just super chatted.
Yes.
The lights behind me just turned on. Oh, you can't see them. They're up here. What do we got?
Chris Wilson says, a mom joke while we wait for Sarah to do it, please.
What's the mom joke?
Thanks, Chris. I don't have my phone because I really haven't had time to collect the
she's
jokes.
gonna go through the book.
So are the joke books you got from your Secret Santa. So let's see, what do we got here?
Okay, while you're doing that, what I'm going to do is then flip this over. And I'm actually going to bend it around my finger until I get it to about the shape I want. I can use that to do the inside of the gouge. And as long as I stay on this stropping and do it occasionally, I never have to take it back to the stones. I can just continuously strop it and keep it where I want it to be. Okay, what we got?
What would you get if you crossed a chicken and a ghost?
What?
A poultrygeist.
I was thinking something along the way of cockadoodle boo.
I like that one too.
Oh, that's so much better. It's slicing now. So now we're going to do this, where I do one side with the grain, and then I go around and I do the other side with the grain from the other direction. That way I'm never cutting against the grain on these difficult portions when I want these nice clean cuts at the end. So there. Now we need to do the final detail on this. So now what we're going to do is, I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm talking about, is we are going to finish this out. And now I want this gouge to come in here and completely fill this all the way around. So I want one edge of the gouge all the way out on this line, and the other edge of the gouge all the way out on this line. So I want to be touching both of them. And the problem is, you tend to focus on one side, and then suddenly this one starts going past the line. And so you need to be able to look at both at the same time as you go along. The other trick is to do it as slow as possible. You don't want to take off a lot of material. Let me see if I can adjust this. Oh, hey, look at that. I can't adjust the ISO live. Cool.
Ooh.
Except we don't want it quite that much. Try it, not that much. There we go. Let's try that. Sorry. Let's focus. There we go. So now what I want to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to develop the middle of this cut. And I'm taking curls right out of the bottom. And I want to go down until I have a cut all the way across like that. So now I'm cutting all the way across here. And I'm going to cut into here. Take some out of the bottom. Oop, there's that knot. I'm going to come all the way along this, just taking a little bit out of the bottom. Oh, this is good grain. Look at that. Oh, yes, happiness. Sorry, you couldn't see that. Love getting good curls that go all the way along, especially in this area because it's actually curling out. Because I want that last cut to be as little material as possible. The cleaner you can make that last cut, the smoother everything will be. And so now we're here. I want to do this a little bit more on that side. There we go. This little knot is going to drive me bonkers, but such is life. I'm going to feather it in, use that chopping motion. So I've gotten from there to there done. Let's climb back. Let's do the final all the way along here. So as long as you take it step by step and don't take off more material in any one step than you should, it's surprisingly easy. It's just, I mean, it's like anything with hand tools. It's a skill. So it's something you have to feel. You have to have the muscle for it. And once you've done it a couple times, I mean, I've made grooves like this before, but I've never actually made a blood groove in a cutting board until I did the other side. And there's this side all the way along there. And we're going to do the same thing on the cross grain, but in this case, in order to get it all in one cut, I'm going to have to go against the grain on half of it. And so this becomes a little more challenging. Again, I'm going to start by taking out the bottom. I want to remove that heavy amount of material right there. And now, too much pressure. Trying not to use that sliding cut, but sometimes you just have to. As long as you do it carefully, you can get into there. I'm going to use the edge, the wing of the chisel, to get up in that corner and get a nice crisp corner right there. And let's just come back. Actually, let's just come back from this side. Detail that up just a little bit. There we go, nice and smooth there. And then again, the same thing on this side. But on this one, we use that slicing motion, cleaning out the bottom. Going across the grain is so rewarding because it's such a it's a very, very scary thing to do. But with a good sharp tool, it goes surprisingly well.
Okay, it's almost too bright.
What's that?
It's almost too bright.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is when I'm backed up.
That's better.
When I zoom in, that's when I want to bring up the ISO. The ISO. And it's surprisingly easy to hold it in place because I have that groove developed already. I'm just skimming the sides of it. The groove is actually holding the chisel in place. Then we come over here, do the same thing on the last side. Using the wing to get in tight to that corner. Oop. This one I'm going to have to come in from both sides because I haven't developed that all the way. Trying not to pull back towards myself too much. There we go. So there we go. Got a groove on 2 of the sides, and the other 2 are basically then duplicating that. So, Sarah, you want to come try 1 or 2?
My time has come. It
So
only
this is whenever you
took
can talk about her behind your back.
till 8:36. Oh, they always have bets for how long it actually takes you to let me touch the tool. Do I need my stool?
It's up to you. Do you want it? You want me to go
I
get
don't know. Maybe.
Okay. You want to start long green, or you want to do here? I'll flip around for you.
I was going to say, can you... You have quite the collection of earplugs down there.
Yeah, I was doing painting. So. What?
You need earplugs for painting?
Yes, that way I can fill like the holes, and so if I'm restoring pieces like that, if there's a screw hole and I'm painting it, if I paint over and I get paint in there.
Oh, it's for the thing. I was talking
about the earplug in there so
your
I
ear.
Yeah, I need earplugs when I paint.
I was like...
Here, I'll grab the stool.
My wheels were turning, but nothing was getting traction. It's like warm.
Don't ever talk to Sarah about winding sticks.
Winding sticks are evil.
Most
This is like hot.
Yeah, it's a lot of friction. So just like we showed you before, one hand goes around the guard here, and the other hand on the pommel.
And pray I don't fall off the stool. We'll see if this is a wise decision.
And try and get your hip into the handle. You want to actually put your body weight into it rather than just using your hand.
I need a longer stool.
You want me to move it for you?
No, I'm just...
While you're holding a sharp object?
I'm trying to decide if this is a safe option. While live, just put your foot against the stool so I don't... Thank you.
Now, you're trying to take off too much. You want to just take off a little bit. You want to take a tiny track right down the middle.
I just put it down. I didn't even get a chance to... I wish they could all experience what it's like to have you breathe. Okay, this is not going to work. I'm afraid I'm going to fall. This is like gargantuan in my hand.
It's going to be hard to do up there without your body weight behind it.
Three hours later.
Honestly, small curls like that are absolutely phenomenal. Because getting used to just taking off little bits is everyone expects to be able to take off major amounts, and you
I got the babyest curls going on right now. So do I just keep going straight, or do I want to come back and?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to do more, otherwise you can just do this area down to full.
Let's just focus on this area because that'll never get done at this rate. What? Speak. I hear you.
No, that was a belch.
Oh.
She hears things when I do bodily movements.
It's my job to notice the tiniest little changes. This is a lot harder when you can't put your body weight. Okay, yes, please.
Is when you're doing it, you'll push on it, and as you push on it, it rocks out like this.
Yes.
And once the bevel comes up like that, you're going to be sliding out and not actually cutting anything. It's very important to maintain the angle of the chisel at all times.
I really need to finish my bench.
Because the angle of the chisel is the depth of your cut. You want to actually feel the bevel and slide right along that bevel. There you go.
Oh, I got a curl.
All right, now let me show you the jabbing cut. So get your hand back on this. You may not want it on a pommel. Just hold it back on like this. then get this hand up here to guide it. Makes it easier to guide this the closer you get to the tip. And you can also use your finger back here to balance it. And just think about stabbing cuts. And each stabbing cut, you can raise it up and you're diving in, or you can lower it down and you're not cutting anything. And so it makes it much easier to find that perfect cutting angle.
So a lot of people have asked the question about using a mallet for the stabby thingy. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing as a mallet, but anytime you're going straight, I find it much easier just to stab than to use a mallet.
I need to finish a bench that's my height. This is not.
You want to step up?
Yeah, well, it's just not. It's just not. It's just not. It's like sawing.
If it's catching, that means you're tipped down too far. Lower the handle just a little bit. And then you'll lower it too far and it won't catch anything, and then you have to lift it up about halfway between the two.
I may or may not be imagining something. No. Okay, this stabby motion looks easy when James does it. Or maybe when you're not. Almost dwarf size. Okay, we're never going to get done.
I don't think I'm going to do the rest of it. Unless the people really want me to continue on, I can answer questions.
So could I use a smaller groove for, I mean, would that make it easier for someone like...
smaller chisel?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but not that much.
Oh, you have my stool.
I mean, file makes a smaller, well, actually 2 cherries makes a smaller one too. And that might be better for you.
Thank you.
So, I don't know, maybe I'll have to buy a full set of carving tools for my wife that are the smaller version. And the smaller versions tend to be cheaper too. Don't stand in front of the chisel, James. Yes. Uh-oh, I slipped. Oh no.
Well, look, I've been impaled. Hang on.
Just imagine Sarah's the one with the chisel.
Yeah, my curls don't look like that. Okay. Let's see. We talked about the mallet question. Mallets. So what brings us together?
Oh, I love that.
Y'all just need to come hang out with us sometime because we're fun. And we like to throw movie quotes everywhere.
Yeah, we rendered the video and uploaded it Saturday, and then both realized we didn't do a video thing.
I know.
It's like,
So sad.
That scene from Ghost was just perfect, though.
And that was all just an idea off the top of my head.
What do we got?
Just put off doing it till our short workbench is done. Nolan, it takes sometimes patience to get your wife in the shop. It's been a long time in the making for James.
Yeah. I've been woodworking since we were married.
I did help you when we were dating, though.
Yeah, because you wanted time together.
It was just an excuse to hang out. Yeah.
Now she's had enough time, and then you have to find new things to bring her into the shop. That's what you guys are here for.
After you do lives, have I been doing them for like 2 years, 3 years?
We've been doing lives for 3 years now.
But I haven't. Have I done them?
You have been off and on for about 3 years now.
Here you go. Oh, Renfest. As soon as we can, we will. We will do Renfest. All right, and it would be cool and family friendly because our kids will want to talk to other kids. All right. So Moonwolf wanted to know, would it not be easier to score the corner so you can avoid tear out?
Score the corner? No, because if you cut in on the corner, then you'll get this cut coming down, and you don't want the walls to be cut. I mean, I guess you could try and cut at an angle, but trying to match the angle of the gouge would be very, very difficult. The small mark from the marking gauge is generally cheap enough to stop the tear out from going past. But the most important thing to tear out is don't take a deep cut with the gouge. Take as thin and small a cut as you can, and you'll have less chance of tear out. Oop, I need to sharpen it. What do we got?
What did Nick?
Yeah, for those of you wanting to know, it's about every 5 to 10 minutes. Whenever I'm carving, I stop and sharpen, whether it needs it or not. Just keep it sharp, and it's amazing what it can do. Sorry, what you got? Oh, we got a pile of questions.
My turn to burp. Okay. And that was thankfully a quiet one.
She is good at it. She is the champion.
We are not having a belching contest right now.
Business.
Shh! Don't tell all my secrets. Okay. Nick Clickner asked, I can't talk over that. Shush for a second. Do you prefer pin or wheel marking gauges, and why? I really oversee use the pin style. Is it just because they are common at flea markets, garage sales, etc.?
I generally like the pin. If the pin is shaped well, it will even do good work across the grain. Wheel gauges are phenomenal cutting across the grain. I do not like them for going with the grain. Whereas a pin gauge goes with the grain great, and it doesn't always work across the grain very well. But if you sharpen it well, so rather than having it just a circular point sticking out, you actually file both sides and you turn it into an oval shape that comes to a point. That will actually slice across the grain as well as go with the grain without actually following it as much. So that's why I use pin gauges more. I mean, I have a bunch of both, but I really like pin gauges. It's a personal preference, though. I mean, yeah, everyone's different, so you gotta try it until you find out what you like. What's next? Notice I like making the noise when you're supposed to talk.
Yeah, pretty much. Jodi Hyde-parker asked, would it make it easier if you scored the lines first with a knife and then use the gouge?
I just answered that question.
I'm trying to read questions, okay?
You're fine.
Well, I thought they were slightly
The
different.
answer, generally no.
Well, one was corners and one was lines in general. Anyways. William Dollison asked, don't some rougher planes have cambered irons for making grooves like this?
Well, yeah, you can. You could try and do this with a that would be kind of fun to try. Is using come on. Oh man, the name is escaping me. Come on, it's a.
What are you talking?
Four-plane. There we are. Well, this would make a very wide groove. It would be like this one would be about an inch wide, and it would not be as deep. I guess if I put a fence on this and I really sharpened it up, I might be able to do it all in one clean pass or back the iron in and out. But being able to do that corner, that would be very, very difficult. It would take far more skill to do it with one of these than it would with a gouge.
So can you not use like a rabbit plane or something in this situation, or does that not work because of where it's located in the board?
No, like a rabbit plane is a plane that the iron comes all the way to the side, so it sticks out the side basically.
So could I just turn on its side?
I mean, the other thing you could do, the other idea would be to use
a molding.
A molding plane. But the problem is it has this heel and toe. So I could do this area, but then once I get down here to the end, I can't get all the way to the corner. The nice thing about a four-plane, or I'm trying to remember the other name. It's completely skipping me.
It's not scrub plane?
Scrub plane!
Okay.
Ooh, Sarah's good.
No, Tiny Workshop is...
Is the iron actually sticks out past the bed, and so the whole profile is below the bed. Whereas with a molding plane, only the cutting edge is below the bed. There's actually bed to come down and support that whole distance. This will only take off a shaving each time. This will take off that whole gouge every time. So you could try and do it with that, but that would take far more skill, and it would make a much wider groove unless you made a specific iron for it, which would be very interesting. What's next?
La, la, la.
Yeah, and when we do Ren Fair, I've got a whole bunch of projects in my shop, things that I've made just because I wanted to make them for a video, like this cutting board, and I'll be giving them away to people who come. So I got a whole pile of things that have been made in videos over the years that I will be giving away to people who come live for that. Sorry, just thinking about that now. What am I going to do with this cutting board? I've got too many cutting boards. What do we got?
Let's see. Matthew Sherriff, what kind of a V gouge would you recommend for a beginner carver, and does V angle really matter all that much?
Not really. They're all pretty close. Something around 60 degrees-ish. The one I have from Two Cherries is one that I probably use more than any other. This one is out of focus. This one is a 939, and I can't remember what the numbers are. If I remember correctly, 9 is the sweep, and so that's the angle of the V. And the 39 isn't making sense because usually that's the millimeters wide. Unless it was 60, no, it'd be 39. Yeah, I don't remember what that is. The other one I have quite a bit. Let me grab my other V. I mean, I've got 6 or 7 V tools. But the other one I use the most is this one from File. It's a number 12 on theirs. So there's a 612. And this is their smaller handle size as opposed to the standard handle size. And I use this one. This one's a little bit narrower. But in all honesty, it just depends on what you want to cut. And get the V tool that fits the shape you desire to make. What's next?
So, Tara Golden asked, would it be worthwhile to make a custom scraper to smooth that groove?
Oh, that's what I forgot to mention. Is the other thing you can get, the other thing you can do is a scratch stock. Boom, scratch, scratch, hoo ha ha. Sorry, old video. And what this has is it's basically a card scraper that comes out and is shaped to a profile. So you can see this one that I was making earlier. This is for a molding, and the video fell apart on me, so I wasn't able to make the video that this was for. But what this can do is I could use this and have the fence on here, and I can actually scratch that profile into the wood. So I could make a profile that is exactly what that is and have a fence in here and come in and clean it up. That would probably be the smart thing to do, and if I were doing this quite a bit, it would be worth the time to come in and make the exact scratch stock. But in this case, it's just not worth it for the time of making one cutting board. But if you really wanted to make something perfect, that'd be the way to make it absolutely identical all the way around, is make an exact scratch stock, get it close with the gouge, and then come into that and really clean it up, and you get a nice detailed cut. It would be basically a card scraper to that, but the scratch stock with the fence holds it at the exact same spot every time you're getting that perfectly regular cut all the way around. But yeah, that would be the appropriate, best way to finish it. But I don't know, I kind of find this fun. What's next?
John Day asked, I've never seen a bench dog on a leg vise like you have on your tail twin screw vise. Is there a huge downside structurally to it? I'm about to install a leg vise and was wondering.
No, actually I had dog holes on my last leg vise on my old bench. The reason you don't see them in leg vises that much is you don't generally clamp across the bench, you generally clamp lengthwise to the bench. And so that's why the dog holes are usually in the end vise. But on my last one, I had a dog hole in the leg vise, and then I had a couple holes across the bench as well, so I could clamp things across the bench. So it's just personal preference. But yes, that's very doable to put a dog hole in your leg vise. What's next?
Let's see. Tiny Woodshop asks, is white oak a good material for a cutting board, or are the pores too big?
That is a great way to start an argument. Honestly, in my opinion, if the wood is hard enough, it is a good wood for a cutting board. You will have people who say, never use this wood, never use that wood. And in my opinion, it's all baloney. It's just perfectionists trying to be perfectionists.
Except for palm.
Yeah, palm isn't wood, it's grass, so it doesn't count. You'll talk to the perfectionists and they'll say that you should only use elm for in-grain cutting boards. You should only use maple for flat grain cutting boards, or birch or beech, but whatever.
Lignum vitae.
Honestly, the whole idea of, oh no, something's going to soak into the wood, that's really not a problem, because the way wood works, it tears things apart and it becomes antibacterial because it pulls the water apart. So nothing can live there. I mean, bacteria can, but I mean, that's always going to be, doesn't matter what you have. If it's wood of any kind, you're going to get, bacteria can fit into the pores of maple just as well as it can fit into the pores of oak. So, yeah. And you should be cleaning your cutting boards in between each use anyways, so.
One would hope.
If you cut chicken on a cutting board, I don't care what wood it's made of, wash it before you do anything else. What's next?
Pandamonium asked, have you used bamboo as a material?
I have worked with bamboo a few times. I don't like it. It is an annoying substance, much like palm. It's just, it doesn't lend itself well. I mean, it is actually a grass. I joke about palm being a grass, but bamboo is, and it just doesn't work very well. But it's renewable, it grows quickly, it's relatively cheap in most places. So yeah, if you like it, go for it. Just not for me. The downside to bamboo is because you have to use it in strips, you always have to glue it together. There's just more chances for it to come apart. And I've never heard of anyone doing end-grain bamboo. That would be absolutely crazy, but I guess you could.
Just imagining what that would be like.
Not in my kitchen. What's next?
That's it.
That's it? Oh, we really go through that many questions?
We did.
Oh, okay. Well, what time is it?
8:58.
Oh, okay. Well, let me finish up this groove and then we'll call it a day. Because this is something that, I don't know. When you get something that requires a bit of a skill and you learn the skills and techniques needed for it, it is incredibly enjoyable and incredibly rewarding to do something that is completely by hand. I mean, there really isn't much more by hand than grabbing a chisel and making something. No jig, not even a plane bed or a way to hold it. You're just you and a sharp edge and some wood. And that is incredibly rewarding and a lot of fun. And one of the reasons why I love working with hand tools. Yes, it is never going to be perfect. It is never going to be absolutely gorgeous and amazing. But you made it by yourself, and that's what makes it fun. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Have a little bit of fun. Just jump in and make something. So hope you liked it. I think we'll wrap this up. Unless I forget anything.
I had one last question come through.
Oh, fine. What is the one last question?
Nolan Stevenson asked, would using a spalted wood be okay for a cutting board?
Yeah. No, the fungus in that will die once it dries up, so no problem there. The only downside to it is if it's been spalted too far, it might be soft and punky, in which case then you might want to look at stabilization, but then you have these whole things of people like, oh, don't use stabilization. Whatever. If you use a plastic cutting board, what's the difference? So, I think I'll do it. So, until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye.